Okay, so let's talk about changing or converting a fraction to a percent using proportions. Before we do this, let's be reminded of a couple clear things here. All right, we're talking about the word percent. It's really a compound word making up of the first syllable per and the second syllable cent. And if you can remember that cent, right? There are 100 years in a century, there are 100 cents in a dollar. So that 100 is key for really understanding what percent is. So when I'm talking about the word percent, I could think of that as per 100, right? That word per and that cent means 100. I could say per 100. I could always also say percent means out of 100, right? Or even I could say for every 100, right? So percent could mean per 100, out of 100, or for every 100. But remember, that cent means 100. So when we're talking about percentages, it's always out of 100. So for example, 37%, that's like saying 37 out of 100. Again, that means this, 37 hundredths, right? So 37% as a fraction is 37 over 100. Let's take a look at 56%. Again, 56% could be 56 out of 100 or 56 for every 100. But again, same fraction, 56 on top, 100 in the denominator for out of 100. Let's go 2%. I could say 2 out of every 100, 2 for every 100, or 2 per 100. What's that? 2 out of, right there, 2 out of 100. Again, there's your fraction, 2's on top. 100 is the denominator. Even if I have something more than 100%, 120%, again, 120 out of 100, 120 for every 100, or 120 per 100. And there is your fraction. Again, improper fraction because I'm more than 100% there. All right, so that basic idea in mind, let's say I'm looking at some fractions like this and I want to change these to percentages. Well, the key is I just got to say that 3 out of 5 is the same as how many out of 100, right? So that 100, I'm using that in the bottom of my second fraction because percent means out of 100. Same thing, 17 out of 25 equals how many out of 100? There's my variable over 100. And the same thing, 3 over 2, how many out of 100? There we go. There's the setup of the proportions. All right, and remember, the first way we want to try to solve proportions is check for a common factor. And remember, the factors of 100 are these: 1 times 100, 2 times 50, 4 times 25, 5 times 20, and 10 times 10. So if you have denominators of any of those numbers, it makes it easy to find the percentages. Here we go. Let's go back to these, right? Common factor, right? I can see 5. I know 5 is a factor of 100. 25 is a factor of 100, and so is 2, right? Remember, there are my factors. Let's find that missing number. Here we go. Well, what? 5 times what is 100? It's times 20. So I do the same to the top. 3 times 20, I get 60. So that means, remember, it's 60 over 100, and that means that that percent is 60%. Same thing here. 25 with 100, that's times 4. 17 times 4 is 68 then. So that means it's 68 out of 100, which again means it's 68%. And that last one, 2 to 100, there's a 50. 2 times 50 is 100. So I have to do the numerator 3 times 50 and get 150. But remember, that's 150 over 100, and it's 150%. So, right, common factors always the best when you know those factors. So remember those. Those are key. What if I have, look at these. I got all of these that are not factors of 100. Well, let's set up our proportion. And this is the case. Well, now I got to do, since I don't have a common factor, cross multiply, divide by the lonely guy. So that's what I would do to get that answer. 3 times 100 divided by 8. Again, set up this one, right? How many out of 100? Cross multiply, divide by the lonely guy. There we go. 1 times 100 divided by 3. And again, set that up at the end. How many out of 100? So that's 8 times 100, cross multiply, divided by the lonely guy of 9. And there is my 8 times 100 divided by 9. Now, none of these come out as whole numbers. We're going to talk about this, but this is the basics. And we can practice how to get these and how to do some long division and some cross canceling. But that's the setup. First, check for a common factor. If that doesn't work, cross multiply and divide by the lonely guy. That's it. Let's go take a look and practice this and see how easy this can be.